Greetings to everybody. I'm Deacon Tim Sullivan. I'm the host of Greenhorns in Black, a series we've been doing with the newer priests in the Diocese of Tulsa, and we're stretching it a bit here. We've got a priest-to-be, Deacon Robert Healey. He's going to be ordained a priest in the Diocese of Tulsa in about 3 weeks, June 26th. So welcome, Deacon Robert. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This is good.
Yeah, well, it's good to see you. I've known you and your family over the years, and very active, devout Catholic family. So I assume that has something to do with your deciding to be a priest.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
I'm sure it did.
What else influenced you as far as the decision to become a Catholic priest?
Well, there were a lot of things. I would say that ever since I was a little boy, about 7 years old, serving Mass, I always kind of wanted to be a priest. But, you know, when I got to high school age, I was kind of realizing that I loved to write. I loved history. I wanted to teach those subjects, and I wanted to have a farm and a family, and various different stuff that just were on my heart and in my desires. And so I went to college, still open to the possibility that God might give me a priestly vocation, but really with an eye to being a teacher of English and history, and teaching high schoolers to communicate their hearts and to know where they are and in terms of where they've come from and stuff. And it was really during my time at Benedictine College that I developed a profound sense of a mission. St. Catherine of Siena has that saying that almost everybody knows. It's just a wonderful saying of,
Yeah.
If you could be who you were meant to be, you'd set the world on fire. And that really caught me on fire while I was in college. And so it was during that time that I began to see the possibility of the priesthood as a real possibility, not just a future, something that I could potentially do.
Right. Well, tell us a little bit about your early days, your family life, where you grew up, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so I'm one of 6 kids. I have 2 older sisters who are married and raising beautiful families. Younger sister who's a Carmelite nun in Cincinnati. She'll be able to come back from my ordination, thanks be to God. Younger brother who just got married, and the youngest brother still home. So very close with my family. I was homeschooled all the way through K-12, and so I spent a lot of time with my siblings and a lot of time with friends from really every type. It's fun. I have friends in basically all of the major private schools and public schools in Tulsa. So I knew a lot of people just through my cousins and through other people that I worked with or in my choir. But really growing up in my family and being blessed with the Catholic faith and with a great big imagination, and we lived in Tulsa. I've been basically living in Tulsa all my life, except for college and seminary. So,
right. I know that your family is musical. I don't know if everybody in the family is musical, but everybody I know of is. And so do you have a musical background yourself?
We all sing. I mean, my parents sang in the Tulsa Oratorio Chorus when I was a kid. They sang with the orchestra in the PAC and sang all the masterworks of Mozart and Bach and Beethoven, and these great classical music. So I was really given a pretty classical training in music. So we all sing. My oldest sister is a concert pianist and an organist. I have a sister who plays violin. My younger brother plays fiddle. He and I kind of a dual fiddle It's a lot of fun.
Wait,
We
so
all
do you
sing.
wait, hold it. Do you do bluegrass?
More Irish
More
fiddle.
Irish.
We're
Okay.
kind of getting
Even better.
into bluegrass.
Right.
Not so much bluegrass, but Western.
Right.
So Irish and Western fiddling. But I mean, I play a dozen instruments, more or less. But and I love instruments, and if I get my hands on an instrument, I try to figure out how to play it and can squeak something out, and But I would say guitar and violin and piano are my instruments that I'm most
I
adept
was
on anyway, or most comfortable with.
I was at a dinner party once and your parents were there. And I remember they just spontaneously jumped up and started singing Do You Love Me from Fiddler on the Roof.
Oh yeah,
It was just amazing. It was like a Broadway, musical right there at the dinner table. So,
yeah.
uh,
Was
uh,
it an anniversary?
no, no, I'm not
No, because
sure.
they've done that at my grandparents' 25th anniversary and at my aunt and uncle's 25th anniversary. They sang after 25 years. It's nice to know.
Oh, well, Sal, tell me where
So
you're going to
cool,
be
actually.
assigned. Do you know your first assignment?
Yes, I'm going to be assigned to St. Anne's in Broken Arrow with Father Matt Gerlach and uh, fill in some pretty big shoes. Father Sean has been just amazing out there, so getting to take up the mantle for him is really an honor.
Yep. Well, I'm sure you'll do fine. What did you enjoy the most about being a seminarian?
It's really hard to say because living in a seminary is just a full experience all of its own. I loved the prayer um, in union with my brothers. It's really something to be in a seminary chapel where you have 90 or so men
Mm,
um, singing uh, in unison. It's really very powerful. The chant music, singing in the schola. Um, you were mentioning music. That was a big thing, but also all the sporting, just the in-house sports and the fun. I mean, we've had basically 80 to 90 guys living in one house, and so we play all manner of in-house sports, but there are also different leagues for different sports between the seminaries, as it were, of interseminary competitions. So I would play in the soccer tournament up at the Josephinum in Columbus. We'd have guys who go to the basketball tournament in Chicago or um, out in Missouri, that sort of thing. So just a lot of fun. I would say the community at the seminary and getting to be brothers not only with the men who are in formation for our diocese, but for all the other seminarians in the seminary that I've been attending, which is Mount St. Mary's in Cincinnati, Ohio. There are two Mount St. Mary's. There's Cincinnati and there's Emmitsburg. That's the
Maryland.
first Mount St. Mary's,
Yeah.
Emmitsburg, Maryland. So a lot of people say, "Oh, I knew someone went to Mount St. Mary's. Do you know this person?" Well, it might be the other seminary, but
Right. Which state? Well, it's
right.
interesting. Almost everybody we've talked to, young priests and seminarians both, have talked about the spirit of fellowship
Mm-hmm.
in the seminary and how that spilled over into the priesthood here, and how that's really been a special part of their life.
It's very powerful. I mean, these are men who are preparing for the priesthood and really joyful about it and really excited about it, and the constant prayer, the repeated prayer throughout the day in common and in private prayer is all reinforcing of the daily reminder that this is in preparation for the priesthood. This is in preparation for a life of leading people in prayer and uh, guiding people in a deeper relationship with the Lord. So I would say that fraternity is very powerful.
Right. Do you have any goals, any special interests, some things you'd like to focus on in your life as a priest?
Well, tons. But the
What's at
just
the
different
top of the
things that
list?
I would say on the top of the list is just wanting to um, love the people that I'm encountering, just to love them and draw them into a deeper relationship with the Lord, a deeper friendship with God. Um, I think that it's the thing that most people in our world don't realize, but everybody in our world absolutely needs, is a profound uh, union and communion with the God who made them and who desires to be intimately connected with every part of their life. And so, getting to be kind of the face of that process by which um, you know people are moving toward our Lord and moving into deeper knowledge of Him. And yeah, that's so integral to that is saying mass and hearing confessions and giving talks and doing retreats and all the kind of things that a priest does just as a priest, but included in that is the daily interaction, and the being present, people in the height of heights when they're in the ecstasy of being newlyweds or having a baby, in the kind of the trough of sorrow, um,
Yeah.
where all the real moving and powerful life-changing grace is, um, just getting to be there in that. Yeah, that is very, very much on my heart.
One of the things that's challenging about being a priest, especially a young priest, is that people assume that you're trained to handle every single situation that comes up. And
Perfectly.
yeah, exactly. And especially when you talk about people that are in the trough, who are encountering some kind of real serious challenge, and you're thrown into that situation, and they turn to you and they expect you to know exactly what they're going through and to have the answer that they need to climb out of that trough. So it's quite challenging, I'm sure.
Yes, and I expect it will be. Um, I would say, though, that one thing that I learned from homeschooling, oddly enough, is that the teacher isn't the one who knows it all. The teacher is the one who knows best how to learn. And what I learned most from my parents growing up and being homeschooled was not that they had all the answers, but they knew how to study. They knew how to look for the answers and how to, uh, uh, you know, they. If I had a question, my mom didn't necessarily have the answer to it, but she knew how to ask that question and to, together to kind of lead me to being able to find the answer that I needed. And so I think that it's always a temptation for someone in any teaching role, but I'm sure especially as a priest to want to jump in and just fix things or just try to teach. I'm the expert here, look at me. But what one realizes very quickly is that one doesn't have all the answers oneself, for other people's lives. What the person who does is the God who made them.
Right.
And so in getting to know Him better, then that intermediate role is in drawing people to know Him so that He can guide them, so that He can support them through the trough, can accelerate with them on the crest. And
Well, and he's given us 2,000 years of predecessors who have
exactly.
shared their wisdom, that's available to us and the people that we're serving too. So that's
That's right.
helpful. Well, you may have already answered this, but what do you look forward to the most in the priesthood?
Ah, yeah. I I would have to say saying mass.
Right.
Of
Yeah.
all the things, um, the most profound uh, reason for celibacy, the most profound reason um, for the the obedience and the prayer, everything is so that the priest can enter into the moment when he's consecrating the Blessed Sacrament, and enter into that with a union with our Lord that is impossible to imagine. I've been told this numerous times. I've read this in the works of the saints. I've got glimpses of it as a deacon. I know you probably have as well. The sense that the closer you get to that hands-on encounter, to be to intend the double entendre, that is something that one can't really describe in words. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the 2,000 years of Catholic history that we have the benefit of, do you have a favorite saint, somebody that's particularly inspired you?
Absolutely. Saint Therese of Lisieux
Mm.
has been there for me every step of the way. She's amazing. So I would say hands down, she's on top. St. John Henry Newman has been guiding me through my research and my thesis. So I'm learning to think with him and like him. And I'm assigned at St. Catherine of Alexandria right now, so learning who she is and getting to know her better. It's been pretty powerful too, but St. Therese all the way.
So when you talk about St. Therese, is it what she wrote and the way she lived, or do you also seek her intercession in specific situations?
All of the above.
Okay.
She gave me the greatest gift I could ever imagine when I received a first-class relic of hers. And so having the opportunity to pray before her relic has just intensified my knowledge of who she is as I read about her, as I read different biographies of hers, as I read her story of a soul and come to know her theology, which I think is profound. There's a reason that Pope John Paul II says she's the saint that we most desperately need in our time, in modern times. She has the answer in her simplicity, in her childlikeness, and in her joy in the midst of suffering. Yeah, she's profound.
Yeah. She's
not pristine, sugar-coated, candy saint, like sometimes she's painted out as in very, very pastel colors.
Yeah.
She's basically the protege of John of the Cross, and it's amazing.
Right. She describes her own struggles in a very practical, very understandable way, not pretentious, very clear in what she says. I mean, everybody can relate
very
to her.
Approachable.
Yeah.
So I hope that people who are watching this will read her story of a soul and look deeply beneath the simplicity of her presentation to see the ardent love in her heart. It's amazing.
Well, thank you for that. Well, you mentioned that you grew up here. You had friends in private schools, Catholic schools, but also public schools. And as you know, there aren't that many Catholics as a percentage in Eastern Oklahoma. I'm sure you've been asked, challenged at times by non-Catholics, why are you Catholic? We get asked all the time, why are we Catholic? Have we been saved? Things like that. That's just part of being Catholic in the Bible Belt here in Oklahoma. What do you think is the best answer for a Catholic to respond to that? If somebody says, tell me why you're Catholic, tell me why. What's the best reason for being Catholic that would be maybe the best way to answer a question like, why are you Catholic?
Well, there are plenty of flippant answers that one could give that I don't think are helpful.
Right. Yeah, that's for sure.
And there are plenty of answers that one could give to try to provoke a conversation, like, I'm Catholic because that's the biblical way of being Christian, or because that's everyone was Catholic 500 years ago. Every Christian was a Catholic. But I think that the reason for being Catholic is because apart from the fullness of God's revelation, which is preserved and not just preserved in the sense of collecting all of things and maintaining, but the relationship of obedience and faith to what God has revealed is only found in the Catholic Church. Outside of the Catholic Church, it's actually what I'm writing my thesis on, is that within that it's not possible to give full assent in faith to God and to have all the rewards of total union with Him without having the surety that comes from knowing and believing that He has given us His church. And so the kind of simple version of all that, perhaps in a shortened answer, would be being Catholic is the only way to meet Jesus face to face here and now today in His physical presence on earth, and to know without a shadow of a doubt it's Him, and that He wants to be involved in our lives. But like you hint at, like there's so many things that could be said. I don't know that would be the answer that I'd give.
No, I think that's a
every
great
time
answer.
to every person.
Well, you mentioned you wanted to be a teacher, and I think that obviously teaching is going to be one of your gifts as a priest. So we're grateful for your commitment to serve the diocese, and we ask God's blessing on you in your ordination, but in your years of service to the diocese. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah.
I'm deeply grateful.
Yeah, well, we are too. So thanks very much, Deacon.
Okay.